Salute and welcome to another episode of the Inner D. I guess this has been a thing, but I just kind of, I literally looked this up like a few minutes before I started the show. But this month is, well, at the time I'm recording this, this month is National Women's Month, and so because of that, I kind of wanted to go into um, some of the women I've encountered in college. I guess this is kind of unconventional, but like the women I encountered, which kind of segues into me. I guess which ties back into topics I've been talking about before. Goes the women I've met and I eventually developed something for, and so I guess to start off, like for my freshman year, um, there was one girl I met my freshman year. Um, I guess for the sake of this, I call her AA. Um, Obviously, I don't know what it was about her, like in hindsight, that like attracted me to her. But I guess it had to have been looks. Like, I guess her looks is what entranced me about her. I guess I would say. I guess because like I guess I mentioned this before, but I wasn't really around people or specifically women as I grew up. So, well, actually, let me rephrase that. Not when I grew up, but throughout school, as I was homeschooled before coming to college, and so when I came to college, it was like my first injunction. Like it was, I felt like I was thrust back into role, especially in the topic of women. Yeah. So I say all that to say, at the time I couldn't explain it. I still can't, but at the time I felt and thought that she was the most beautiful girl I knew that I was going to be around anyway because I was really around her that first semester because we had a class. Well, yeah, we had a class and then we ended up having another class unrelated to the reason why we had the first class together. But that's besides the point. And it's funny how I felt that way about her because the thing is, I didn't really know her as we never really talked. Like we had, I say, we've had minor conversations, but it was never anything like deep or meaningful. So yeah. Um, there was another girl I met freshman year, well first semester of freshman year that I had a better relation with. Um, for the sake of this episode, I'll call her MM1. And so we had a class together. That which was actually the same class I had with AA. And at the time, I was going through one of the darkest periods of my life mentally because of said class. Um, I wasn't really talking much. I wasn't showing up physically. Well, no, I was showing up physically, but not really present. And she was one of the few people who actually noticed, I should say. I remember, I missed a class, and then I guess the gist of it was like, they talked about like, I guess it was mentioned in the air that, well, out loud, not in the air, but out loud that I wasn't there, and why was that? Because I was always there. I was always coming to class, and I think they kind of. I think most of them knew I was kind of a stickler for the rules, unfortunately. But and so I think the reason why I knew I was like the situation was talked about um because what she put on the note because later I guess after class I think at the time the way her class was I think she had two classes that day. I think one was math, and then it was the class we had together. And so after that class, she was done for the day. And so I remember, I guess later, I guess after the class had ended, somehow she got into my suite, because my suite was all men, and so somehow she got into it because she would not have been able to get into it otherwise. Um, I remember this was around the time I attempted to end my life, but she didn't know that. None of them did. But that was partially, I guess that was 75% the reason why I didn't go to class that day too. But I was still kind of um, healing or trying to recover, and so I stayed in the bed. I think I got up in the morning, but then I just couldn't move. I couldn't. I guess just the fear and dread of seeing those people who I felt hated me, kind of broke me down to to be in bed bedridden again. And so I remember, I think it was there was a knock at the door, and I think, well, she didn't say who it was, because I think what happened, because I didn't say who was there, because I feel like if I would have said it was there, um she wouldn't answer back, but she didn't answer, because I thinking about it right now. I'm thinking, why didn't she say hey, it's me? But then again, she would not have known if I was actually in there, so she would just be speaking for nothing. So I guess I get it now. But I remember she knocked. I think I was trying to get up and trying to answer the door, I guess, right? And then, yeah, because I remember getting up, because I remember, yeah, I actually got up, and some time had passed, because it took me a little minute to get up. She wasn't there, but she did leave a note. So now I'm thinking, did she leave? Was I guess it had to have been, right? Because she left, after she knocked and she didn't get a response. She wrote the note and she left on the door, because that's what happened. Because when I finally made it to the door, um, looked out, no one was there, but there was a note on the door. Um, I think it was more or less she was like, I don't want you to be afraid to come to this certain place. Um, know that I'm always there for you. Something along those lines, like that. And so, it, and actually, and I still have that note. I still carry around with it in backpack, just as a reminder of, I guess, a good time. I guess during a time I felt like I had someone, at least who was appearing to be someone, I guess, in my corner, I would say. And I would say, and because of that, that stuck with me more than I realized at that moment, especially now. And I would say I liked her for more than just surface level reasons. I mean, yeah, I thought she was really pretty, but what really drew me in was the way she carried herself. She was smart, focused, driven. She seemed secure in who she was. She took school seriously. She moved through spaces with this quiet confidence, I would say. And in a time where I felt unsure of myself, that type of steadiness was attractive to me. But if I'm being honest, I never told her how I felt. Not because I didn't feel it, but because I didn't measure. Well, because I didn't think I measured up. I had already convinced myself that I wasn't her type. I was still figuring out who I was, still battling my own thoughts and demons, still trying to feel worthy in rooms I didn't always feel like I belonged in. So instead of risking rejection, I just stayed quiet. And also, because I would say, I guess during that small period of time, I say I considered us to be friends, especially that first semester for sure. And so, um, I didn't want to risk that friendship, that type of that. I don't want to risk anything happening to that friendship, because she was someone I really, I guess, yeah, still in that time frame of that one semester. She was someone she was someone I thought really highly of, and so I didn't want to risk losing that perception of her, and so I kind of just kept that part to myself. And over time, as time went on in college, I realized something. Sometimes the question isn't about the person; it's more about what they represent. For me, she represented stability, growth, the kind of woman I admired, the kind of life I wanted to build as I grew older. And when you never express those feelings, your mind can hold onto them longer than it probably should. Not necessarily because you're in love with a person, but because it was never resolved. Nowadays, I don't really look at that situation with regret anymore. I look at it more as a mirror. She showed me what I value in a woman. She showed me where my confidence was lacking. She showed me that I had to. She showed me that I had work to do on myself. And I guess in hindsight, maybe that was the whole point. Because not every person you like is meant to become your partner, as evidence in everyone who I'm going to talk about for the remainder of the episode. Some of them are just meant to teach you something about who you are. And that leads me to sophomore year. Um, in the sophomore year, I met a girl who I call Ma. I met her when we were prepping for homecoming. At the time, I thought she was cool and obviously nice to look at, of course. And I ended up having her on Instagram and Snapchat. And then I think some time had passed. Cause I think I want to say this was because I met her in the fall, and so I think the next event I'm going to talk about that involves her was in the spring. And so I remember asking her if she wanted to go to an event on campus, and I think it was for ODK, which stands for Omicron Delta Kappa. So she said she would get back to me, but she never did, of course. And I should have known right then and there that she wasn't really interested in me. Um, because what she really wanted to do was she really wanted to say no, but I guess for some reason she was scared and wanted to seem like this nice person. Um, Later, some time happened. I think I want to say this is most likely fall of next year. Yeah. Oh yeah. That most likely is the time frame fall of next year. She ended up. She later ended up blocking me randomly on Instagram. Later, I figured out that someone who I knew my freshman year, another AA, who I had the same class with from A1 and MA1. I shared a class with those three people. That she was actually in her ear telling her all these negative things about me that weren't true. So, in hindsight, I would say knowing her or trying to or getting to know her was always going to be doomed from the start. And so, some honorable mentions of freshman year was I met a second girl who I'll call MA2 for this episode. The same night I met MA. Um, um, I always kind of sort of thought that she was kind of too hot to even be thinking of little old me, so I never pursued it. I kind of like to think, I guess back then, I kind of like admired her from a distance. I know we still have each other on Instagram, but it's kind of like none of us unfollowed each other yet, so that's why we still have each other on Instagram. I think that's what that is. But I guess coming back from like the present, but like as I was thinking like back then, years later, that proved to be correct as I ended up messengers. I ended up having the courage to eventually message her something. I want to say it was. I think it was, yeah. It was last summer, because yeah, it was last summer. I messaged her something on Instagram, and then um, I guess just yeah, she just straight up ghosted me. Um, I guess that was a lesson, because I think at the time, um, I guess it was just a thing where, like, I guess uh, confidence. And that was something I just talked about recently, just like a certain boost of confidence, cause we're just like me just well, I guess just DMing people, because I guess girls, because like I guess it's like 50-50 random, because like it's like I know them, like we've interacted before, so it's not like I'm just some random person that they never met. And I guess too, and it could be kind of random, because I guess um what they could think of what I'm trying to do is kind of like not what they want, and kind of like I never like was in their DMs before, except at that point in time. So that's the other half of it. And then there was a third girl I met during sophomore year. Um, During my tenure with the admissions office. For the sake of this episode, I will call her RW. And I would say for this instance, this is probably the least of anything happening. As I was never really trying to pursue her, I kind of just thought she was um, really pretty. Um, and I always thought she was like, I guess, a lot older than me. So I guess in my mind I thought like she would never go for someone like younger than me. But I think in reality, I think I found out later. Like, I think if anything, she's like 1 or 2 years older than me, and that I guess in hindsight, that's not that big of a difference. But I didn't really, that wasn't something I was thinking about at the time where I during my first interactions with her. And so I will say though, I definitely thought about kind of, I guess, talking to her about, I guess, I guess just asking her out, or like having lunch. Well, asking her out, having lunch is kind of the same thing. But I thought about it a few times, but I was, you know, I would say I never really was going to act on it. So now we're on the last couple few, which I kind of put in the section of like senior year and beyond. Which when I say beyond, I mean like currently now. So the first person I met in this last little section was someone I met during my later years of college, who came into my life at a really specific time. I will refer to her as HA for the purpose of this episode. Um, I remember she introduced herself to me first, because from what I remember, I feel like we seen each other a few times, like in the space that we were going to. Um, I think we kind of looked at each other because we were doing our schoolwork, and then I remember she spoke some she said something first, and that's how we started talking. I guess side tangent here for a second. Um, I feel like that's kind of an issue I'm trying to work on, but that's kind of a potential thing where like a woman would have to, or a girl would have to like initiate the conversation for me to be like engaging. Because I feel like whenever I try to do it, I just say, "Hi, how are you?" And that's kind of it. My mind goes blank after that. Like I can't like come up with anything. So I feel like majority of time, every time I do it, the girl is so uninterested. So it's hard for me to like be have that energy to be engaging. So it's kind of like, what's the point, you know? But but when HA did it, it was surprising. And then I remember, I guess some time had passed, and then I remember, because like she came up for like on a suggested on she came up as a suggested account on Instagram a few times, and I was really hesitant for the longest to like kind of push follow. But I remember one day, um, when I was in class, I think I finally pressed follow and just kind of like backed out of it and then thinking nothing, because I did it before class started, so that way I would do it and then class would take my mind off of the thing I just did, and then I would forget about it. And then I think later, I think it was that same week, she kind of accepted me, and then she followed me back, and then we still have each other to this day. But I would say that her introducing herself to me mattered more than I think she ever know. I think I did kind of tell her that, but I don't think she'll probably will get why it matters so much. Why it matters so much to me. At the time, I was in a season where I was still figuring out who I was, spiritually, emotionally, socially, and I didn't always feel seen by people, especially my girls. But from the beginning, she made space for conversation, simple conversations, the kind that doesn't really feel forced, especially for me. What I liked about her wasn't service level. It wasn't just attraction. It was just how steady she was. She was calm, grounded, intentional. The kind of person who didn't rush through moments. When we talked, I didn't feel like I had to perform or be the loudest version of myself or play any type of character that I portray majority of the time when I'm on campus. I felt like I could just exist. And for someone like me who lives in my own head a lot and overthinks almost everything, that steadiness felt like a peace that I never really had before, especially in college. I realized at, a, at some point that I liked her and had feelings for her. I guess to speak on that briefly, I guess as a little side tangent, I would say it was when I had invited her to do something. It was in December. That meant a lot to me. Well, I won't say that, but it was special to me. And she actually came. I was surprised because people don't really show up for me, so it was. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. I think I told her briefly about this too, but again, she probably doesn't know how much it meant to me, but it really meant a lot, just because cause, cause we only met like that semester, and like I think the time we met was, I want to say it was in October, and so um yeah, we I feel like we knew each other so little. I feel like it wasn't even 2 months. It was almost 2 months that we knew each other, but not really. But but the fact that like we knew each other so little, and she was still showing up for a special like event for me, it was really touching. And also, I at that it was also during finals weekend, so still she made time for that, which was really um I guess something I look back on fondly. But but I guess but to go back to, I guess, liking her, um, it wasn't really like a way that I like people before, especially going back to um, AA from the start of the episode, like in a big dramatic movie scene way. I say I liked her like quietly. Um, I tried to be I try to really think about it in like in a more respectful way, which is something that was like new to me. I found myself caring about how she saw me. I didn't want to mess anything up, or like our friendship at the time. I didn't want to mess that up. I still didn't want to make her comfortable because I guess just because like I felt like I tend to do that unintentionally, and so that's something I was trying to work on. I also didn't want to distract her from her goals because I know I know we talked about like the things she want to do in her career and like things she has to do in college to make that happen. So I didn't want to do that. And I think um, seeing all that, well, I guess going through all that, I think that's when I knew it was different because it wasn't about possession. I guess it was about protection. I guess myself and her. Um, and I guess to a certain point, it was about admiration as well. Eventually, I told her how I felt. Um, it was I want to say the tail end of the next semester, so that spring, so the end of that next semester, which is that spring, so the end of that spring semester, and she didn't feel the same way towards me romantically, but the key difference the key difference between her and everyone else was she was kind about it, and that really mattered to me as well because I feel like something always bad that makes me something like in my head. Once you tell someone like that, well, once you tell something, once you tell someone something like that, they kind of like look at you differently in like a bad negative way. But with her, it wasn't like that. It taught me that rejection doesn't always have to be humiliation. It doesn't have to turn someone, particularly me, I guess her from her on my end, into a villain. Sometimes it's just clarity. Sometimes that clarity is a gift, even when it stings a little. Looking back, I don't see that whole thing, that whole situation, as something that I lost per se. Um, I see it as something that allowed me to grow more as a person. She showed me that I'm capable of liking someone in a more healthy way. That I can admire without obsessing. That I can feel deeply and still respect boundaries. And maybe some people are meant to be your forever. Maybe they're meant to show you who you're becoming or who you will end up being. There was another girl who I met during my later years. For the sake of this, I will call her CN. And at first it was just casual, group hangouts, group workouts, small conversations here and there. Nothing deep. I didn't really expect anything to come from it. Really, it was because my intention was just to train for the St. Jude run, and that was coming up at the end of the year. But somewhere in between, I realized I started looking forward to seeing her. Not in a big dramatic way, just in a quiet, like I can't wait to see what happens. I can't wait to see what I learn kind of way. If that makes sense. And I guess it can also be the kind of way that someone's presence makes the room feel, you know, a little lighter. What I liked about it wasn't just how she looked, though. Yeah, I'll say she's really pretty too. It was her energy. I would say she carried herself in a way that felt present and unforced. She seemed genuinely happy to be where she was, like given how fresh, like how young she is, you know. And I think what caught me off guard about her was how normal I felt around her. I didn't, I didn't feel like I needed to perform. I didn't feel like I had to overcompensate. For once, I wasn't trapped in my own head. That meant more to me than I expected, especially during that time. I think that was because um, since she was new to college, she didn't really know too many people, and by that I mean too many people that knew me, and so I didn't have to prefer. I didn't have to be this character that like she thought she thought I was or heard I was. I could just be kind of more of my normal self, which was really liberating. I would add, but if you know me, well, I guess if you know me like I guess from what I've talked about in previous episodes, or if you're listening and you know me outside of all of this, you know I tend to overthink a lot. So instead of just letting myself enjoy liking someone, I started analyze analyzing everything. Things like, should I text? Should I wait? Am I reading too much into this? What if I make it awkward? What if I misjudge it? And that's when I realized something. Sometimes having a crush isn't about what the other person. Sometimes having a crush isn't about the other person at all. Sometimes it reveals how afraid you are of rejection, or how much you care about not messing something up. And the truth is, I didn't want to force anything. I didn't want to turn something simple into something heavy. I just appreciated her. I appreciated the reminder that I'm capable of feeling something solid without spiraling. I appreciated that I could admire someone without trying to possess the outcome. That that felt like growth to me. I know where that situation. I don't know where that situation will or will go. Maybe nowhere. Maybe somewhere. But what I do know is this: how to approach people with calm instead of desperation, curiosity instead of fantasy, and courage instead of fear. And honestly, that lesson mattered more than whatever happens or happened next. The second to last girl I met in the later years was this girl on campus that I ended up finding myself quietly admiring. Not in a loud, dramatic way, just in a subtle way where you notice someone's presence before you even realize you're noticing it. For the sake of this episode, I call her SM. Um, she was pretty well. She still is pretty involved on campus. Um, I think that was, and I think what stood out to me wasn't just that she was busy, but that she still seemed confident in spaces I still sometimes feel like I'm learning how to enter. And I guess I'll add real quick as a side tangent. Her being so involved, especially early on in college, kind of reminded me. Well, kind of reminded me of me, and that kind of thinking about it now might be a reason as to why I got attracted to her. So I guess it's something to think about that I'm thinking about. And if I'm being honest, I don't even know her like that. Well, I guess as much as other people she hangs around. We weren't really texting, well, like that. I think the only time we text was about um a project that I was working on, and that's kind of really been the main thing. I think I wished her I texted her a happy birthday, and that was kind of really the main things. We haven't really no I would say really we haven't hung out at all. It was more of an admiration from a distance. But sometimes that says more about you than the other person. I think I was drawn more to her drive, the way she carried herself, the way she seemed certain about her goals in life. And maybe part of me wanted to understand that certainty or grow into my own version of it. I've realized that sometimes when I have a crush, it's not just about attraction, it's about projection. It's about what that person represents. For me, she represented visibility, influence, being known, and as someone who has spent most of his life, my life, feeling half seen or misunderstood. That kind of presence is and felt powerful. I don't think I wanted her. I think I wanted what she embodied. There's always something humbling about liking someone who probably has no idea. It forces you to sit with your feelings instead of performing them. It makes you question whether you like the real person or the idea you constructed in your head. And I had to be honest with myself about that. Was I interested in her or in the story I was telling myself about her? But at, but at the end of the day, I'm grateful for the feeling. Not because anything happened, but because it reminded me that I'm still capable of being moved by someone's character. Sometimes a crush isn't meant to turn into something. Sometimes it's just a mirror. It shows you what you admire, what you're missing. It may be who you're becoming. Finally, um, I guess more or less the last girl I met in further detail was at an Arctic Bible study. And for the second of this episode, I I'll call her AB. I saw her around a few times on campus. Just being cordial, just saying hi, or just. I think it was more waves than highs. I later saw her at a conference earlier this year. It wasn't like some dramatic movie type moment. At least to me, it was just normal, simple. We talked for a bit, and for some reason that stuck with me. Because I don't usually walk up to girls like ever. I don't usually initiate. As like I mentioned before, I tend to overthink literally everything. But something about the conversation felt calm. It felt easy as well. What what I liked about her wasn't just how she looked. No, though at that period of time I thought she was pretty decent. It was how she carried herself. There was, I guess, a bit of a quiet confidence there. She seemed grounded, present, the kind of person who didn't need to be loud to be noticed. And for someone like me who lives in my own head a lot, that kind of stood out to me. And part that mattered the most, as that was the most unusual thing I probably do, is I asked her for a number, which might not seem small to like the general population. As because I think I've read recently where it's like where I seen in a study where like where it was found that men tend to ask girls out way more than girls tend to ask out guys. But for me, it wasn't it wasn't such a like a small thing because I don't take those risks. I don't take those risks easily. Um, my brain tends to run the 10 worst case scenarios before I even say hello. But I did it anyway. And when she gave it to me, I remember thinking, okay, maybe I'm growing, maybe I'm actually progressing. She never texted back after I followed up, and I won't lie, it hit, well, it hit or stung like hell. Not necessarily because she owed me anything, because she didn't, but because I guess in terms of me, when you tend to step out of your comfort zone and it lands in silence, it makes you question yourself. Makes you question yourself, I should say. Because then I start to wonder if I imagined the whole connection in my head. Maybe I like if I miss like maybe I misread everything, and I was just kind of naive at something happening. But looking back now, currently, I don't think she was a lesson. I think the lesson was courage. The lesson was that I actually tried. That I didn't let fear win, even in that moment. Sometimes growth doesn't look like getting the girl. Sometimes it looks like becoming the kind of person who can handle not getting her and still be okay. And lastly, to wrap up, um, there's one girl who I met recently who I have who I'll say is like kind of like the last honorable mention here. Um, yeah, I've known her for the last few months. Yeah, because I think I've seen her around campus, especially. Well, I seen her around physically last semester, and then I think I talked to her. We actually talked briefly, under 5 minutes. It was the end of last semester, December to be exact, and so I would say that's how long I've known. I would say I know her. I would say I know of her. I think that's the right verbiage I would use. And for the sake of this, I'll call her FT. And I would say she's really pretty, for sure, definitely. But I would say from the very first conversation we had back in as I mentioned December, um, I could tell that the vibe was off, and every conversation I've had after that with her, and I always breathe. And it always felt forced, and like she was trying to push this nice persona, like she's trying to portray that she's this nice person, which I won't doubt that she is, like especially to people who she constantly hangs out with, her like her friends who are girls. So I wouldn't necessarily say she's this bad person, but to me it feels like she's kind of forcing herself to be this character that she's not, at least in my eyes. But I guess the funny thing is to speak back on the last girl. Um, I also have her number, but in the grand scheme of things, um, I would say that it means absolutely nothing, because like nothing has happened, and I would probably never reach out. Probably besides happy birthday, and probably then she'll probably um wouldn't respond or do anything. But I guess I try not to harp and think on it. So yeah, and I guess currently, I guess if I'm being honest, because honestly, this is kind of like a non scripted thing because I didn't write this down because I wasn't sure if I was gonna like when I was coming up with like the script for this episode. I wasn't gonna like mention this, but now that I'm here, I'm like, what the hell? Um, there is this one girl who I've met as of late that kind of I would say she has my eye for sure. Um, she's definitely pretty, of course. Um, I think what's drawing me to her in particular is she's she has an athletic side to her because she's in intramurals. She's in intramurals. 'Cause I know last semester I seen her. She was doing flag football, and now this semester I found out she's doing basketball. So so that's that side. And um, and I'll say another side is she's religious, and so I feel like that'll be a good conversation to have with her. Just kind of pick her brain on like that whole side of her. But so yeah, so that's kind of where I am. I think we had a mini interaction earlier this year, but I felt like we didn't like. It was just like a random like a random strangers. But now, and then I think a few weeks ago, I think it was the day before Valentine's Day. I think it was around that time. Where like it was. I think it was the first time we interacted on campus, and then it's kind of like funny thinking about it now. But like I feel like after that, I feel like I started seeing her more on campus, like more than I was seeing her before. Cause I think, well, cause I think mainly I've for the most part I've been in the UC, and so So I would say I've seen her. You know what? I'll go ahead and say at least 5 times, at least. Kind of around the same area too. Hey, actually, you know what? Thinking about it right now, um, I guess before, I guess before the random interaction we had earlier this year, I did kind of see her last semester in the UC, but I think it was like I think at least 3 times. But she was always on the but this time she was on, but last semester she was on the second floor of the UC, and so I don't know, but like we never had interacted prior, and I guess yeah, and the thing about me is I'm not just gonna um walk up and just talk to you, especially if like you're doing in the middle of something. I feel like I feel like it's awkward and comes off as weird. So I feel like something. Cause I feel like I did that a few times freshman year, especially in my first semester, and that went. I would say it went badly, but it ended up becoming like being a kind of a bad negative thing to do in hindsight, as I gotten older and grew more in college. Um, Recently, I think the place I have seen her, I think last time I seen her was in the library, the library randomly. It was shocked to me because I didn't think because I thought she always would be in the UC, but yeah, I guess that's someone who's been I guess on my mind a lot as of late for sure. But to wrap up, since this is a since this is National Women's Month, I'd like to I guess thank and sort of praise all the women um, who I talked about because I know some. I know it hasn't. I know some of the women I talked about in the episode hasn't ended like in a positive, happy ever ending, like have a happy ever after ending. But regardless, I still love them as a person, and respect them because they're human, just like the rest of us. But not just the people I talked about, well, the women I talked about here, but all the women that I've encountered in my life, even on campus, there are some pretty amazing ones. Because I know a couple of women athletes here as well, so they're definitely putting in the work putting in the work I would say. So just continue to continue to fight the good fight, do your own thing, and don't let anyone stop you or hinder your potential. And with that, that concludes this week's episode of The Inner D. I will see you on the next episode.